Dope, pingers, weed, coke, eckies, molly, junk, smack. These are all street names for drugs that are illegal in Australia. But you probably know what we're talking about. How? Chances are you've tried one or two of them. The National Drug Strategy Household Survey estimated that approximately 8 million Australians over the age of 13 had tried illicit drugs at some point in their lifetime, and almost 3 million had used drugs in the past year. Millions of Australians are using drugs on the regular, and according to data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, accidental overdoses and deaths are increasing. So the criminal law isn't stopping people from using drugs, or even dying from them. But what alternatives are there? Governments have three options to regulate drug use and try to minimise the harm that drugs can cause. They can criminalise, legalise, or decriminalise. Criminalising drugs is what Australia currently does for drugs like heroin, ice, speed, cocaine, and cannabis. This makes using or distributing the drug illegal and tries to prevent people doing so by threatening them with things like jail sentences and criminal records. But the data shows the threat of criminal law isn't really stopping anyone from using drugs.
Very often what happens with prohibition is that we see a phenomenon that people will refer to as the iron law of prohibition, and that is where more dangerous drugs emerge because of prohibition. So what happened in the United States is that when alcohol was prohibited in 1920 was that beer disappeared and was replaced by wine and spirits. Why did that happen? Because let's say I had a truck that had a capacity to carry 10,000 gallons of liquid from Kentucky to Tennessee. Prohibition comes in, severe penalties if I get caught. Very risky, not worth doing just for beer, really worth doing for wine or spirits. So that's what happened. Prohibition's repealed in 1933 and immediately beer comes back. Cocaine going to crack, methamphetamine going to ice. There are so many examples where the iron law of prohibition encourages more concentrated, more dangerous drugs to emerge.
A second option is to legalise drugs. We've done that for things like tobacco, alcohol, even paracetamol. Government-approved chemists can test the drug, standardise dosage and price, while also reaping the tax rewards. The US state of California legalised cannabis in January this year, and they raked in more than $2.5 million in taxes in the first month.
I mean, to lock a young person up in New South Wales right now costs over $300,000 per young person per year. $300,000 for one kid. I mean, just imagine how much money they'd save. If most of this kid's issue was around drugs, then having that young person in treatment would be far more beneficial, economically speaking.
Some people argue that legalisation may encourage drug use and normalise it. With more people using drugs, the health impact could end up taking a massive toll on the health system, like cigarettes and alcohol have done.
Marijuana is a gateway drug. The risk of graduating to ice or to heroin from extended marijuana use is real and documented.
However, while alcohol causes about 15 deaths and 430 hospitalisations every day in Australia, there's not one single reported incident of someone dying from marijuana. The final option is a sort of middle ground. Decriminalising drugs means drugs are still illegal and punishment for trafficking remains the same. But instead of sending people to prison for possessing personal use quantities, you give them a fine, like a parking ticket. No criminal record. It's what Portugal did in 2001 for all drugs, even heroin and ice, and HIV infection plummeted by 90%. But what about drug use? Wouldn't decriminalising drugs make more people use them? Well, no. The Portugal Ministry of Health reported that heroin users had dropped by 3/4, from 100,000 users in 2001 to just 25,000 users. California legalised cannabis for recreational use in January, and Canada is preparing to follow suit with national laws in 2018. So before we decide on any new plan for Australia to legalise cannabis, let's consider all our options first.